And welcome to Witch Rising. I'm your host, Reverend Mary Hawk, and with me is my guest, Lucy. Thank you for joining us tonight, Lucy.
Well, my pleasure.
And can we expect any feline assistance tonight?
Possibly, if Tasha realizes I'm sitting on the computer, we may have a cat in front of our noses.
It
But
wouldn't be a pagan broadcast without a cat. It just wouldn't be.
no, Tasha likes the attention.
Yes, Tasha likes attention. I can attest to that. So, tonight we're going to discuss the question, are pagans and paganism under attack? Do you feel attacked, folks who are watching us?
Mm-hmm.
And feel free to chime in chat with your comments. We'd love to hear from you.
So, how do you want to start this?
Well, in my opinion, the answer is yes. What do you think, Lucy?
Okay, let me put a little background in. I grew up a Roman Catholic until I was 21. Then, when I was in college, I got involved in the full gospel, charismatic, non denominational, spirit filled, all the terms. Um,
Evangelical?
well, evangelical is part of it, but they're even more about being full of the spirit and raising their hands and speaking in tongues and the whole 9 yards. But the aim of the charismatic movement, which is translated into the Christian nationalists, is to claim our country for God and Jesus Christ. And whatever method works to get to that point, they're going to employ. For example, when I was in college, abortion wasn't a big issue. It wasn't the overriding end all and be all issue, not the way it became about, I'd say 10 years after 10, 15 years after that. That became one of the hobby horses that they could effectively use to push their agenda, which they cover up with the it's a Christian agenda. Well, they're using Christianity for formulating their power base. So yeah, we have uh, a group of people who have decided that for the best of what they consider the best of the country, it needs to be Christian. So we pagans are, and other groups that are non-pagan and non-Christian have to look and see what they're doing and how they're doing it.
And I just want to make a quick comment on Fox News Sunday during a discussion um, about baptisms of students at Auburn University. Fox News host Rachel Campos Duffy stated that Americans do not have a constitutional right preventing religion from being imposed on them.
Um, okay. I do believe we do have a constitutional right of freedom of religion, and that's implied in the construction of the amendment that the religion cannot be imposed upon a person who is unwilling to be part of that religion. That's
It
part of
falls
our
under
founding documents.
freedom. Freedom of religion implies freedom from religion.
Exactly. Exactly. So she's blowing smoke.
She is, but I just want to point out in the current climate, a news host on a particular channel felt like they could go on TV and
Hmm.
state that.
Well,
20 years
that's
ago, I don't think that could have happened.
no, no, not at all. Well, see, that's
Not at all.
part of the insidiousness of what's going on right now, and I'm using the word insidiousness deliberately, because it's kind of like the tent in the desert, and your camel's outside the tent, and he sticks his nose in, and you don't bother with his nose, so he sticks a little more of his nose in, and then his head is in there, and before you realize it, the whole camel is in the tent with you. And this attitude where the a portion of the population thinks for the best good of the country, we need to be all Christians. That's not something that they run around and scream and yell. It's kind of undercover pushing into the general culture. Trying to change the culture to the point where people are going to say, yes, we think you're right. You need to have a Christian nation. And those of us who don't really feel like we need that, we need a moral nation, but not necessarily Christian as defined by the Christian nationalists, we're sitting here going, no, we don't think so. That's why we got the little witches vote down there on the bottom. As long
Yes.
as we allow people like, well, I'm not even going to name names, but of the ones that have been in the news and have been pushing far right ideologies. As long as we have people like that running the government, they're going to be imposing their ideologies as much as they can, whether we want it or not. So that's one reason Mary and I are strong proponents of voting. We
Yes.
feel like the only way, well, not the only way, one of the best ways to keep an ideology from overtaking the governing of our country is to make sure you vote people in that know what they're doing and why they're doing it and are looking for the benefit of the entire population and not a portion of it.
Yes.
You can get me
Number
rambling,
one,
Mary.
but you're rambling to the point, Lucy. Number one, which is vote. Vote,
Mm-hmm.
vote, vote. Because if we don't go make our voices heard, there are other people who will make their voices heard.
Mm-hmm.
So go vote, go register, look up how to register to vote, get registered and vote. And even if you feel like you're voting for the lesser of two evils, still go vote
Mm-hmm. And take the time
because
to figure out
we
what the issues are.
study the issues and local elections are extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
The Christian nationalist movement started by taking over school boards, folks.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
So take back our school boards. Look into your city elections. Look into county elections.
Mm-hmm.
Vote for your state representatives.
Oh,
It's
that is
not
so
just
important.
the it really is because they basically abortion has been sent back to the states to decide right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if we want to control our own bodies, women, if we want to be able to decide whether or not we can carry a pregnancy to term. And I've shared this before, but during the last 10 years of my marriage, or the last 10 years that I was fertile, I'm now postmenopausal. We were careful that I didn't get pregnant because I couldn't have carried a healthy baby to term, pure and simple.
Mm-hmm.
When I discussed having a baby with my doctor, direct quote, "Are you crazy, Mary? You have this and that and the other." No. So that's our first point, vote. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing is there is Negative energy being programmed. And I have dealt with this in my
Hmm.
own family. After I left Christianity, one of my relatives said to me that she was going to pray every day that God would take away every single thing from me until I came crawling back to Him. But there are people who are programming that kind of energy.
Yeah, and before
Again,
we sit, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, Lucy.
I was going to say, and before we sit here and go, well, they can sit there and pray as much as they want to. It's not going to affect me. The thing we need to remember is everything is energy. All
Energy is
matter
energy.
is energy. Matter is energy. Um, Electricity is energy. Sunlight's energy. Everything is energy. And one thing we do as witches is to use our spell work to manipulate the energies around us to create what we feel we need or we want or would be best for the situation that we're in. So, prayer warriors, and that's what they call them in the prayer circles, is prayer warriors have access to the same type of energy we have. And when they get together in groups and start directing that energy towards a certain aim, that's a lot of potential power there. Now, we have the same level of power, it's just that sometimes we don't use it.
And this is true. So the other piece of this is shield.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be shielding yourself, your family, your property
Mm-hmm.
against the place you live. I mean, I keep shields on our cars, on our
Mm-hmm.
house. I've shielded apartments. When we lived in apartments, I shielded the apartments.
And you have personal shields too.
Yeah, shield yourself, put a shield around your aura. But a lot of times, especially in the Wiccan community, we want to be all sweetness and light. And the reed does call us to, and it harm none, do as thou wilt. But that doesn't call us to not recognize a threat when we see one.
Well, the next the next line of the read, and it harm one, do as you will, unless in self-defense it be. And you're the one that determines whether you need to conduct self-defense or not.
And I would say a shield is passive.
Mm-hmm.
If you're shielding against negative energy, that's not going to affect anyone who's not sending you negative
Mm-hmm.
energy.
Well, as I've always said about the Wiccan Read, you can take it and distill it down into one word, and that word is think. Think
Yes.
before you do something. And that includes whether you actively direct energy against somebody who's trying to hurt you or, get into your property or whatever, or just having a defensive shield up. Sometimes you've got to be on the defensive. Sometimes you've got to be on the offensive and say, look, you're going to mess with me, I'm going to pop you in the nose. That's where the
And this is
unless in
also true.
self-defense it be.
And on my property, I have mirror shields. Whatever you send to me, it goes back to you. Oops.
I have dogs.
Well, I have a dog too. Your dogs are bigger. You have two dogs that are bigger than
Hmm.
my dog. But
Yes. Well, what I'm thinking is that's part of our defense of the property is the dog's energy will keep away somebody who's worried about big dogs that make big noises.
yes, and my
Use
dog
use what you
makes
need.
My dog makes a very big noise,
Mm-hmm.
much bigger than her size.
Mm-hmm. But as far as the shielding is concerned, you can, if you're really good at manipulating energy, if you practice that a lot, you can put up your shields only with the energy that you're working with. But if you want to use spell work, or you want to use complementary items, stones, herbs, um,
Carry crystals around your
crystals,
property if
yeah.
that's an option.
Mm-hmm.
If you live in an apartment, you can place crystals at the four quarters.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that. When I worked in an office, I had uh, representations of the four elements at the
Mm-hmm.
four corners of my desk.
I actually did that on my property when we lived up in Ohio. I had a representative of the elements in each direction around the property, and my coven at the time, we got together and we energized them as a group to put protective energy on the different areas of the property. And as far as I know, it's still working.
And it can be very effective. I went to a festival on the property of some friends of mine. Their coven meets there, and they worked with the land spirits. And I mean, I let my grandkids run riot that day, didn't have to worry about them because I could feel the protection. Oh, the land spirits have the grandkids. They're safe here.
Mm-hmm.
I could feel the work they've done with them.
Yeah, with my property here in Nashville, I have a fence. Well, it's a brick and metal wall fencing all around the property with gates uh, on the driveway that have to be opened before anybody can come in. And the back of the property is actually runs down a hill, and it's about 10 to 15 acres of woods right behind us. So
You
we
really
have,
have to want to get to
yeah,
Lucy's house.
but we periodically energize the fence and then the walls with our protective energy. And as far as the back of the house is concerned, we just draw on the wooded area energy and reinforce the idea that it's hard, you can't get in that way. I mean, you really can't get in
Mhm.
that way.
You know, I mean, I'm sure like a SEAL team, the Green Beret could sneak up on your house, but
Mm-hmm. There's snakes back there.
hmm
So, yeah, go through the snakes. We'll see what happens.
yes, they're snakes and spiders and
Foxes and
mm,
deer
yep.
and
Now
opossum.
we just built this house, so I buried a crystal before they poured the foundation. So
It's a
my
good start.
protections are based on the crystal my husband and I buried here.
Mm-hmm. Good start.
Yeah. So yeah, this is our property. Good luck getting rid of my crystal.
Now, there's various ways to do shielding and guarding. It's just what you prefer to do and what works for you. Energizing the fence and wall around my property works perfectly for us. But if I felt like I needed something else, there's various rocks and crystals, etc., that have a resonance towards protection that I would energize and spread along the wall for protection.
Yes. Brick dust is one. Hello, Melanie. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you.
Good evening. Oh, if I'm going to read a message, I need to put my glasses on. Hello, Melanie.
So, and that's really what we've got for you tonight is be aware that, and we are not beating up on all Christians. We're not. But there is a Christian nationalist movement that seeks to make, hey there, Zane, how are you? Good to see
Hello,
you too.
Zane.
There is a Christian nationalist movement that is seeking to make this a Christian nation, which is contrary to what the founding fathers envisioned. And I'm going to point out too that the founding fathers were not so far from the time that Europe had been torn apart by wars between Catholics and Protestants.
Hmm.
And that's what they wanted to avoid when they set up the Establishment Clause, saying that there would be no established religion and no religious test for office. Is they did not want that issue here. They wanted to take religion out of government. They didn't expect that they knew that there would be people whose actions were informed by their spiritual beliefs.
Hmm.
That's not what they were trying to prevent. What they were trying to prevent were the constant infighting between different religious sects. And also, there had been the divide in the Near East between Christians and Muslims that they wanted to avoid.
That and having a state religion. Were not interested in a state religion.
And as Melanie points out, they also wanted to avoid any form of religious persecution, honoring the fact that many people originally came here to
Hmm.
avoid some form of religious persecution.
One thing I would recommend for anybody who's watching this, um, take a look and see what Christian nationalists say about themselves. Do a little research because they have become more aggressive in their efforts to, um, I guess you could say, turn this into what they consider a Christian nation. Um, they have a philosophy called the Seven Mountains. These are seven aspects of society that they want to see become Christianized according to what they consider Christianity. And it will surprise you to take a look and see what they're telling us about themselves. And they're not going to hide it either. They're just absolutely open about it. And yes, this is what we believe. This is what we're going to do. If
And we're just going
it
to
never
drag
it
you all
never
with
hurts.
us.
It never hurts to educate yourself.
Never, ever does. So, what we want you to take away is be aware of what's going on around you. Uh, Vote. Be aware of the issues in your area, especially the local issues. Vote, 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 vote. And be aware of your psychic and magical defenses
Hmm. And if you
because
see a
it's as
campaign,
important as wearing your seatbelt and locking your door.
and if you see a campaign during this next election year that you feel as a person who you really want to see in office, volunteer.
Volunteer.
Donating money is good. They need money, but they really can use volunteers.
Yeah, volunteer for whatever you can do to help.
Hmm.
Make phone calls, knock on doors, go to their
Right.
office and say, I do Excel spreadsheets.
Stuff
Whatever
envelopes.
you lick envelopes. Whatever you can do.
Ride to the polls.
Yes.
I did all that up in Ohio.
All right. And I want to thank everyone who's watching for saying hi and commenting. And this is Reverend Mary Hawk with Witch Rising. And Lucy, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thanks for asking.
All right, folks. And we are out. Blessed be and keep those shields up, folks.